Hi, I'm Ashy, and today I am continuing my watercolor series on monthly herbs. So the herb of the month for July is parsley. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to paint parsley on a watercolor card. Let's flow right into it. The paper that I'm going to use for this is these Funto blank watercolor cards. So these are 300 GSM, which means they're pretty heavyweight, which is nice because they don't buckle and curl a lot. And they are cold press paper, which means they have some texture, but they are not 100% cotton. So that's something to understand, that they're not going to react like your nicer 100% cotton paper, but for illustration type cards, they're really nice. They come with the envelopes as well. And then if you look at it, the one side of the paper is a lot smoother, and then the other side is rougher, more textured. So for these, I'm going to use the smoother side just because it's a little bit more detailed, illustrative. For looser work, sometimes the more textured side is better. And for like wet on wet, it tends to be a little bit better to have a little bit more texture, but I'm going to use the smooth side, and we're going to do portrait view. You could turn it landscape, but I'm going to do portrait orientation for this. So first, I'm just going to wake up my paints here. They're already partially wet, so I don't need a lot, but I'm just going to spray them down with my spray bottle, make sure that they're nice and wet. And then we're going to get started. So with the brushes that I'm going to use this Degato artist brush. It's a size 10 round. These are from Amazon. They come in a pack with a ton of different sizes, and I like them. They're not very expensive. They don't shed. The ferrule's nice and snug. It's not loose and wobbly, and they come to a real nice point, and they maintain their shape really well. I've had these for quite a while, and they are doing really well. They hold a good amount of water, but they're not like too soppy wet and too drippy, and they come back and they hold their point and again hold their shape well. So I'm going to use that for sure. I'm probably going to use this. This is a Georgione. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It says it's a size 2 and it's a liner brush. I would not consider this a liner brush. I would consider this just a really small round brush, but it comes to a really nice point. So that's going to be good for some details and some lettering. I have these other brushes as well that I might use. This is actually a liner brush, a Princeton Select liner. I might not use it. I might. A Degato squirrel hair brush, which I really like. They are really good. They hold a lot of water. So that's a really good, nice squirrel hair brush for fairly inexpensive also. The Degato brushes I have linked down in the description of the video, so if you're interested in them. And this is a size 2 that I might use, but we'll see. I'm definitely going to use this 10 for most of it though. So the parsley, when I was researching this, there are kind of a lot of different types of parsley. So I'm going with the one that's the most common in the US, and that is curly parsley. It looks like Italian parsley actually has flat leaves, and then our more traditional curly, or our more common curly parsley has curled up leaves, hence the name. So we're going to start by just getting in some stems for this sprig of parsley. And so I'm going to use sap green for a nice, like fresh, bright green. And I'm actually going to add some yellow. This is lemon yellow deep. So I'm going to add some yellow to it to make it even more kind of springy color. And we're going to start with that color. And I'm going to add a little bit of water so that it's not too dark, because I want to just get the basic shape in first. So the parsley is, I'm going to kind of get the bunch first because it is really kind of bushy and I don't want it to go across the line of the page. So we're going to kind of make it come out to about here, and then it'll kind of come, and I'm just dotting in kind of an edge here basically. And it'll come up there. We'll have some sprigs sticking out farther, and maybe it'll come that way. And then come around and kind of be like that. This side's going to be a little bit fuller. Okay. That's kind of the general shape of where the leaves are going to be. I know that looks really crazy right now, but I promise it will work. And then we're just going to get some stems in. So I'm going to come down from that and come down this way. Okay. And I'm just kind of literally putting lines in for the stems. And then this is where I'll put the tie for the twine tie for the bundle, and then a tag with the name of, with parsley on it. And the stems are kind of wide, so I'm going to do a few coming down and a little bit wider. Okay. So that's the basic shape to start with. And then I'm going to start getting in some of the leaves. So they are, again, they're curly parsley. So the leaves are kind of curly. They're not flat. Okay? And so kind of see one from top down. They are kind of broad, but then they have a lot of shadows in them, basically. And so that's kind of what makes them look. That's how you're going to get the curly effect, is by adding shadows. And then some of them are going to be more like rounded because you're seeing them from this side. And it's just like a giant mass of leaves, basically. So I'm just dabbing in this color to get a giant mass of leaves. And then we'll add a lot of darkness into it. Right now it's kind of giving a broccoli feel. So here I'm going to add a stem coming up to that one. And then out this way. And then it's going to be hidden, but underneath other stuff. But just to get some stems through here so that I make sure that I don't just completely cover it with green blobs. Because I do want to see some of these. So doing like little Y shapes, basically, to get some stems in. Okay. Now to continue with my blobs. And they can go over some of the stems, but I want some of those stems to stay visible. And then we're definitely going to leave some white space, and especially along this edge, because this is a kind of looser portion of the bunch or bundle. So I'm going to leave some white space in through there. So I'm just really trying to get very jagged shapes here. Okay, now I'm going to start adding in some darker greens. So I'm going to mix my sap green with some Windsor violet, and that's going to get a really dark green. Okay, it's going to feel very intense, and that's okay. Don't be scared. Just go with it. Let it feel intense. Because in the middle, there's going to be lots of darkness. Where these blobs of leaves are overlapping. And I'm just trying still to make sure I'm not covering all of the stems. So I'm going around some of those spaces to make them stand out. That's actually going to make the stems stand out more if I add the dark shadow color around them. So like here, I can add in that dark shadow color and then a little bit above this stem, and it's going to make it stand out a little bit more. And I'm just blobbing it in. So that's allowing some of the lighter colors to stay visible. And so that's the highlights basically. Okay. Okay, so now I need to add in some kind of middle greens. So that's really dark, and then I have my really light, like yellowy. So now I'm going to add some mid-tones. Okay. And this is where kind of some of the shadows on these curly ones out in the edges is coming in. I don't want them to be super dark because then it'll just blend in with the darkest tones. So I'm just adding kind of some lines in, some dots to get that curliness. of that yellowy green in some areas. Blend it out a little bit. This got a little bit too dark here, so I'm going to take some water and dab it on and then use a towel to lift it up because I didn't like that. That was too dark. There we go. Okay, actually, I really like that already. So that's pretty fast. It's literally just blobs, which is really kind of fun. Okay, so I'm going to add some darker down into these stems to get some shadows. So just some thin lines to add some shadows. Thinking about adding them on the left side of the stems, but not being that precise about it. And then even maybe some darker shadows in for some behind and under. Okay, now I'm going to add in my twine. So I keep doing this on these as I forget to leave a little bit of white space. But again, this is not cotton paper and it's nice and smooth and it lifts up as long as you're not using staining paint. It actually lifts really easily. So you can almost just erase part of it. So now I'm going to add my twine, and this is basically yellow ochre. There's a little bit of purple in it, a little bit of burnt sienna, but that kind of makes this brown twine color. And it's super pale right now because I'm just getting in the general shape first that I want. And then I'll add in more darkness later. Okay. And then I think I'm going to let the tag come off to the left this time. The last two I did it to the right, but this is more centered and I have more room over here this time. So I'm going to add the tag over here. So it's going to be tied with twine to the bundle here. And then I'm just using that same color, really pale, and adding in that tag. So for the tag, it's going to be kind of a flat edge there, and then it's going to angle down and up, and then come out and square off. And parsley isn't too many letters, so it doesn't have to be super long. And then there are puddles in this, so I want to make sure that I smooth out those puddles, because if I leave them to dry that way, it's going to cause like uneven cauliflower edges, and I don't want that. So I'm just going over that shape, and I can dab my brush on my towel in between so that I lift up some of that water and make sure that it dries all at the same time, basically. You don't want uneven drying times. So if it's nice and evenly wet across the whole thing, it's going to dry nice and flat and not have those unwanted cauliflower edges. Okay. And add in a little bit more. Okay. I actually really like that. I don't think I'm going to add anything else to the parsley itself. I am going to add a little bit of splatter. So I'm going to fold the card so that it doesn't get on the back. And I'm adding a bunch of water to my green just to make it really, really pale. And I'm going to add some green splatter. And then I can add a little bit of the darker green as well. Make sure I have enough water on my brush. Okay. All right. So just a tiny bit of splatter. Now I am going to go in and detail this twine a little bit more, but I need to make sure it's all the way dry first. So I'm going to give it a second longer to make sure it's super dry, and then I'm going to add in some shadows and everything to actually make it look like the twine is tied there. Oh, what I can do actually while I'm waiting for that is I can add my shadow. So I'm going to take some of my gray here. This is basically Payne's gray, which is a little bit bluish. I'm going to add even a little bit of ultramarine to it to make it even more blue. And I'm going to use that for my shadow color. So lots of water, and I'm going to add shadow under the sprig, the bunch of parsley here. Okay. So pretty dense shadow under the stems, and then as I come out, I'm going to do more blobby. Oh, thunder. Apparently it's gonna storm today. That's exciting. I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but I can. Okay, I'm gonna add more water along this. Make sure that it's nice and loose. A little bit of lines in the bottom. And then I'm going to lift some of this edge because I don't like it, basically. There we go. And then I'm going to add in some more blobby edge to the shadow. That way you can see where these kind of sprigs that are sticking out, the shadows of those. Okay. Here we go. And then I can add a little bit more darkness right up along the edge. And now it's wet and wet, so it's going to bleed out nicely, hopefully. Again, though, this is not cotton paper, so it doesn't bleed out quite like you would expect cotton paper to, which is fine. And I'm just lifting to make sure I keep that area of the twine undone. I'm going to loosen up this edge of the shadow a little bit. So adding a little bit of water and then dabbing it up. I'm not dabbing all of it up. And this towel has some texture to it, which adds a little bit of interest when you dab, which I kind of like. If you don't like that, definitely use a non-textured towel or like a paper towel without texture. Okay. There is my shadow. Now I'm going to go ahead and mix up a shadowy brown color. So a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of my Winsor violet to make it a darker brown color. A little bit more of the violet. There we go. And then making sure I don't have too much water. And then I've got to think about the tie here. So the twine is going to come out over the top. So underneath that is going to be shadowed. Okay. There we go. And then there'd be a little bit of shadow where there's the actual tie. And then I'm rubbing out some of that color from my brush so that it's lighter, and I'm going to add some texture to the twine. This side's still wet over here, so it's gonna bleed out a little bit, which I don't mind. Okay. And now I'm just kind of getting fiddly with these details. Don't have to do that. I'm just adding a little bit more of angled strokes along the edge there. Okay, now I'm going to add my lettering because that is dry. And I'm going to use that liner brush that's not a liner brush. And I'm just going to use some really dark brown. So I have ultramarine mixed with burnt sienna. And when you mix those colors, you can get anything from a really dark brown to a nice rich gray. And I'm going to make it lean more brown by using more burnt sienna. Okay. And then make sure I spell it right, because that would be something that I've done before is not spell it right. So P-A-R-S-L-E-Y. And P-A-R-S-L-E-Y. Yeah, that should fit. So I'm just doing capital letters here. I'm not doing anything crazy with the lettering because my handwriting kind of sucks and I can't do anything fancy. There we go. Now I'm going to take some of that color. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. And I'm going to add some shadow to the tag itself. So it's a little bit more three-dimensional. And then I can add like a little circle here where it's going through. There we go. And that just makes it pop a little bit more. And then I can add a little bit more darkness with this tiny brush to the twine. That's the word I'm going for. Okay, so like where it's tied, it's going to be a little bit darker. Add just a little bit more shadow. Okay, here we go. Take off some of the color. Add a little bit more back here. All right. And there is Parsley. So once again, here is that completed Parsley painting. I was really happy with how this one turned out. And this one's actually super easy. So if you're looking for something that's really beginner friendly, this one is really easy. It's just basically mixing 3 colors of green so that you get light tones, mid-tones, and shadow tones, and blobbing in color. It's as easy as that. It's literally just blobbing in color. So this one's really fun. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give the video a like. It would really help out the video and the channel. Also, check out my channel and subscribe for tons more content. I have a lot of real-time watercolor tutorials, and I have a lot of informational type content, kind of beginner to intermediate, with color theory and perspective and all these things that you might want to learn more about. So please check out the channel for tons more content. And thank you again so much for watching. Until next time, keep those colors flowing.